mom was bold enough to ask for an American divorce. Clue number one. Dad had been violent in the past. There were restraining orders against Dad. Dad was restricted from visiting the family, the two teenage daughters and his son. He didn't violate that with the daughters, but he regularly met with the son. That's a violation. The police investigation was that she fell. Then the police investigation was that the 15-year-old son pushed her. Finally, the investigation was that she was dead on the second floor, and somehow she arrived under the window. The police is on record. By the way, we're not negative with policemen. We just want them to be trained. The policeman was an award winner, frankly. In the newspaper, he was quoted as saying, there was one and only one suspect, the 15-year-old. And knowing what you know, I'm just curious, how would you help the police investigate a little further?
Well, the one thing about honor violence that a lot of police officers, for lack of education, don't know, they treat it the same as domestic violence, and it's not. In domestic violence, you don't have the word honor, or shut up in Arabic, attached to it. For example, if the daughters were to follow in their mother's footsteps, dad's honor and brother's honor would be diminished in the community. The community would shun them, nobody would marry the daughters, and his name would be mud, basically. So that's one thing. So you're not going to get a lot of information out of the daughters, which I'm sure they know something, because that's how it is. Unless the daughters are taken away through therapy, through counseling, to try and get past the thought of, if we tell the truth, our family honor is going to be gone. 99.99999% guaranteed the father had something to do with this. I would say almost definitely he instigated and got the son to do something. Why? Because he filled the son with these ideas that my father told my brother. My father, for example, was always telling my brother, you need to go blow, I was raised as a Palestinian. So my father would tell my brother, you need to go blow yourself up when you grow up and kill some Jews so I can be the father of the martyr. My mom said, why don't you go blow yourself up? So this would be a similar situation where you need to go, son, and take care of the honor of this family. And this isn't the only time that this has happened. I mean, when you look at the UK actually has a special unit for honor violence and family violence and for getting girls that were shipped off overseas back home. And there are so many brothers that really were not religious at all, that through the pushing of the family, this is your job, this is your duty, you need to go take care of her, bring her back in line, this is what happens.
So it's interesting because the other detail I forgot was this was a week before the American divorce process was going to take depositions from the father and the mother. A week before the deposition was to be taken. So when you just, I'm not a policeman, but I've learned from people like you and Philip and Frank and the man behind Sharia Crime Stoppers, by the way, is a police chief. He teaches policemen this conversation. You would ask, how about the imam? So here's one of my questions. When you look at all those honor violence cases, typically the imam, as you pointed out, is the judge. A mosque is really a seat of government. The judge is the imam. He doesn't necessarily ask anybody else, he's the judge. So chances are, in my mind, maybe that the imam should have been investigated, the father should have been investigated, and other family members. One of my questions is, when you look at the honor violence cases that you follow, has there ever been an imam indicted in America in association with the decision to kill a woman?
Not that I have known of. The problem is, God bless you, the problem is they haven't even been indicted with ties to terrorists that have blown up people and gone in and shot people in a mass kind of way, in mass shootings. So, of course, nobody's looking at the imam, nobody's looking at the sheikhs that are in the mosque when it comes to these individual cases. That's pretty sad.
So as Philip had an example of Islamic Center, Islamic Society of Boston, again, we have these combinations, whether it's jihad or honor killing, where imams don't seem to be investigated, indicted, brought to justice. I can't think of a single case where there was an indicted imam, there was an investigation, there was a conviction, there was imprisonment. Maybe they're there. I mean, we can look for them. So I think that's an important distinction. We have an American justice system. If the people involved happen to be Sharia, it doesn't get applied. We talk about sometimes in our presentations that everybody in here probably, I know in my house, watches Law and Order all the time. There are special victims units. They are specially trained for the heinous crimes. We don't have Sharia crime victim units. We don't have the training. I just wanted to point that out, and I think you've helped us. By the way, with your background, with your outspokenness, you're on the internet, etc. Has any police department or any law enforcement organization ever asked you to come in for a conversation, for a cup of coffee, to get your advice on how they can do a better job?
No. No,
I honestly didn't know the answer, but I was guessing. So here's a point. In order for us to be safe, we need the police to not be afraid to get trained. Now, I know there are individual policemen that come to this church. We're going to be with an organization next week. We talk about that, and I'll bet there are policemen associated with the organization we're going to be with next week. These are good people. These are people who are committed to justice, and that's why they're policemen. They would probably take the training if it could be offered to them. The problem we have is the city councils hire the police chief, and in Michigan, many city councils are, in fact, very, very progressive. So, again, we have no problem with the individual policeman who wants to do a job. In fact, we would love to find a way to get individual policemen access to the kind of training that would be able to solve these problems. So we want American justice applied. We do not want Sharia justice. And that's unfortunately what we're looking at. Another key thing that you said was women who are not covered are perceived to be sanctioned potential victims of sexual harassment. Can you say a few, and rape? And right here, try to make it local. We're in Bloomfield Hills. Right up the street is a mall called Great Lakes Mall. You can walk in that mall and you will see covered women increasingly. But there are hundreds of women who are not covered. So can you help us understand again, what is the message for the uncovered women in the mall? When they see a covered woman, what are they supposed to think about their own safety?
Well, there's two things. So, according to, and this is not in the Hadith or the Sunnah, this is the backstory. So different schools of Islam will teach you differently. In Jordan, which is an Islamic country, they're not 100% Sharia compliant. But this is the story that I was taught, is that one day some women came to Muhammad and said that some Muslim men, sexually assaulted them at the fountain where they were getting water and playing with water, whatever the case may be. And so Muhammad goes back into the house, and Allah reveals this great statement to him in the chapter of the verses that I showed you, saying that the women should be covered so that they may not be harmed. Now, at that time, what they had were Christians and some Jews that were there, and they also had sex slaves. And a slave woman, or a woman who was not a free Muslim woman, used to only wear, if she wore anything, a little skirt thing that fell under the belly button. And this is Saudi Arabia. It's hot. Okay? So a lot of women did not wear a lot of things. So Muhammad came out with this idea, with the help of Allah, that Muslim women should cover themselves so that Muslim men can know who the Muslim women are and not assault them. Because it is haram, completely forbidden, to rape or sexually assault a Muslim woman. Not so for non-Muslim women. So when a woman is wearing a hijab, she's either extremely abused and she needs help, or she thinks that she needs to distinguish herself from the rest of us as non-rapeable, as a free Muslim woman who is not free meat. basically, for Muslim men. I can't think
You
of
just
that
used a new
word.
word, I hadn't heard that word before. So women who are not covered are rapeable. So if a woman is covered, to me, that's not just and in my neighborhood, I live in Rochester Hills, there are covered women walking past my house in Trader Joe's. Yeah, again, we're not against the individual person, but to me, it's indicating if I was a woman, I would be upset because we're now in a system where she's not rapeable, but I, if I'm an uncovered woman, would be rapeable all of a sudden. Rapeable meaning that the rape is sanctioned. Okay, thank you for that explanation. Another question has to do with the notion that, well, let's just talk about female genital mutilation. We have one case in the country. It was indicted under the federal law that's been around for 20 years or more. One case brought forward. So again, there are studies that say hundreds of thousands of women and girls are either have been or are likely to be experience FGM, yet we've had one indictment, and it seems like it's going really, really slowly. Just from a perspective, just say a few words for us about what is female genital mutilation communicate in terms of just the attitude for women? I mean, that seems to be a really important thing for people to understand.
Okay, so just like men get angry with the women in their lives if they don't wear the hijab because to them, she's saying that I want to be available and I want to be sexually free, I guess would be the correct words. That's why they get angry. It's their honor that they're taking away. So FGM, female genital mutilation, is not compulsory in Islam. Okay? It is preferred. So there are different stages of what's needed. There's compulsory, the hijab is compulsory. Female genital mutilation is preferred. Circumcision of men or boys is compulsory. This is preferred. So if you do it, you'll get that many more brownie points for Allah Muhammad. Okay, because that's the system that Islam goes off of. So they do the cutting, and you can go online and read all about it, in order to stop the girl or the female from being able to feel any kind of pleasure, feel anything, in order for her not to be promiscuous and not to bring shame on the family. And so they think that by doing this, they're protecting their honor and they're protecting their family. When what they're actually doing endangers the girls. There are high rates of infections, even death. I mean, we're talking about here in America, these girls were lucky that it took place by a doctor. In Egypt, it's a butter knife. It's true. Sorry. It's horrible. And a lot of times, these parents are sending their daughters, if they can't get in touch with someone here, they're sending their daughters for visits back to their native countries where they get cut and come back. So there's really no limit. And you know what, thank you, let me, ex-Muslims like myself have been saying that this is happening in the country for a very long time, and people have accused us of everything under the sun, and now that it's coming to life, oh, we wish we listened. Well, let me tell you what else is happening. There's gonna be, they're trying to take over our country, and this is not hidden. This is very obvious. Anybody that can see the chessboard parts moving can see what's going on. There are over 60 candidates, I think it was Pastor McKay that said, that are running for office. And 90 candidates that are running for office. That doesn't include the people that are already in local
I think
and national office.
That's a great response. And one of the things that we've been talking about is how long the infiltration has been going on and how clueless we are. I think the statistics, the reports indicate that up to 500,000 girls have been or are likely to experience, people who are in America, they might have to go back to have it done, or they might have it done here. That's an enormous number of people. We have one indictment. So that tells you there's a whole medical community that either looks the other way or doesn't know, or that there's a closed medical community of people. So think about Michigan. There was a question about why Michigan. Well, whatever the reason for Michigan is, the experience has been we have had a large flow over the generations of medical doctors who were esteemed intellectual people, and they're here One doctor that we know is very well established. I just use him as an example. He's on the board of the mosque on Rochester Road. He was a former president of CARE Michigan. He is currently on the board of CARE Michigan. He's a doctor. There's a whole bunch of doctors that the governor puts on economic commissions for medical and non-medical reasons. There are members of the society. They invest in the political campaigns. They are members of society in Michigan. This is scary. The medical community in Michigan can keep this a secret. That people come from Minnesota to get the job done. So we know if you can be this secretive and have that big of an impact, you can have a political impact, as you said. Your level of infiltration, second and third generation. Oh, by the way, that doctor has a daughter. Her name is Sarah. Her husband's name is Uphold. So the doctor, part of the medical community that is on the board of CARE and the board of the mosque on Rochester Road, is the father-in-law of the man who wants to be the governor of Michigan. He's a doctor. The daughter's a doctor. The daughter's father, candidate's father-in-law, they're all doctors. Basha is a doctor. Mr. Basha is a doctor. He has a very prominent position in the state of Michigan. Yep. He has a very profitable MRI organization. He personally has given, we have records, federal records, over $110,000 of checks written by Dr. Basha in the name of CARE to people like Marco Rubio, John, all the names, all the Republicans as well as the Democrats. That was a digression, I apologize.
Hey, Dick, do you remember when a certain president, I don't want to say his name, but it starts with Obama, when he said that Muslims contribute to society as doctors and lawyers? Well, we finally found the contribution.
Good, wow. That was good. I think there really is something significant. This is why Michigan is on the brink. Again, Frank Gaffney came to Michigan. Frank Gaffney has made 2 videos in the last 3 months specifically about Michigan. Philip Haney is in Michigan. Why do these people who have years of experience come to Michigan? And the challenge is we have an infiltration that is very, very advanced. And of course, we had Katie Hopkins here on May 19th to talk about that same issue. Michigan is moving in the direction of London, and you can look at the impact London is having on the United Kingdom, as well as participating in the changes in Europe. So Michigan could be have a major impact on the rest of the country. It's interesting, yesterday we had a conversation, and Andy's not here, we made a little distinction between the Sunnis and the Shia. Yeah. And your background is Sunni, hers is Shia. I just recently learned how prominent the Shias are in Dearborn, and maybe you could just say a couple words on Sunni and Shia.
So Sunnis and Shia are enemies, though they've been killing each other for about 1,400 years. All because Muhammad, before he died, they asked him who should take over after him, and he said, "He who is closest to me." The man couldn't even die in peace. And the Sunnis are the people that said it should be Abu Bakr. Abu Bakr was Aisha, the 6-year-old wife's father, as well as his best friend. The Shias are the people that said, well, it should be Ali. Ali is his son-in-law as well as his cousin. And that's how the fight started. So Shias are predominantly in places like Iran, Syria, and Lebanon. And although they are enemies, the end goal is one. There's a lot of differences in the doctrine. The Shias have the 12th Imam that's supposed to, I'm not really an expert in it because as I was growing up, I was taught to fear the Shia. The Shia are very sneaky, I was told. Apparently, Inez says it is so. So, the 12th Imam is supposed to come up. The 12th Imam doesn't come back until there's absolute chaos in the world. That's Iran, the people that Obama gave nukes to, they want chaos in the world. And the Sunnis, on the other hand, they follow, and most of Muslims are Sunnis, they do not follow the 12th Imam thing, but they both want the same thing. They're both against Israel. They're both against America. They both want Allah and the Sunnah of Allah and Muhammad. The Sunnah is the way, of Allah and Muhammad to dominate the world. You see, Islam is peace. I was taught when I was a kid, Islam Salam. The only part of that that you don't get here in the West, or that you don't hear people say, Muslim people say, and one day, they said, one day it will rule over the White House. The flag of Islam will fly over the White House. This was something that I was taught when I was 7 years old. This is not something that even started in the 90s with the memorandum. That was just the little tip of the iceberg. The first recognized honor killing in the United States was of a girl called Palestina Issa. Atina was killed, I believe, by her parents, and that was in the 80s. The Islamic infiltration of America starts with the blood of our pirates that we had to pay money to back with our first presidents. So it took Thomas Jefferson coming up with the Marines. It's a great story. You should probably read it.
That's right.
To try and defeat them.
So it's interesting. They are united against Israel and America. The other comment just yesterday that I picked up was Annie wanted to make a distinction that the Sunnis will tell you they're going to kill you. So the Sunnis would be ISIS. The Shia, if I got it right, would not tell you that, would have a softer way of moving, might even convince you that you're going to be friends. And the reason it was interesting to me is I didn't realize that the middle part of Dearborn is primarily Shia. A lot of resettlement were Shia folks, and some of the newer refugees in the south side of Dearborn were Sunnis. They definitely still talk about each other. I was there a month ago and heard it. But this notion that it's a little bit more complex, a little subtler, a little bit more deceptive to establish themselves. I thought that's what she said.
Well, yeah, it is. And on the face of things, that's what it is. I mean, when I grew up, I was told the Shia are very sneaky. You never know when they're coming. But this is something that's practiced by both sides. The Sunnis and the Shia practice taqiyya, which is the permitted lying in order to further the cause of Islam. So you're permitted to lie, like Arnaz was talking about, to further the cause of Islam. They'll become your friend for you to convert, or for you to be easy prey once they come around. One of the things is the noon, the symbol of the noon that everybody's talking about. ISIS weren't actually the people that were drawing that on the doors. It was their neighbors. A lot of people don't know, and there's videos and other stuff about it. My mom grew up in Iraq, so we have some contacts back there. My mom's from Bethlehem. And Mosul is one of the oldest cities, Christian cities in the world. And for the first time, a couple of years ago, in a couple of thousand years, there were no more Christians in that city. They're coming back now. Problem is, before they came in, before ISIS was coming in, the imams were going up to the manaras, the big tall thing where they can speak on speakers in the mosque, and saying, don't bother buying things from Muslims or from Christians, because in a couple of days when ISIS comes in, it'll be loot. Who knows where the Christians live? The Muslims that were living right next to them. I've only heard of a couple of stories where Muslims risked their lives to actually warn their neighbors that ISIS was coming. The rest of them didn't. And those are the people that have been breaking bread with each other for over 1,000 years.
We've heard that also from Nared. She's from that area and tells us a very similar story. I think we're going to wrap it up because there's so much more that people need to hear for the next interviews. But God bless you, and thank you so much for giving us a real insight. We want women to understand this. If you want to have a conversation, I'll just pick up the phone and speak to my 3 daughters. You might want to have a conversation with your daughter, maybe even your granddaughter. This is here, it's very, very serious. So thank you very much.
Thank you. No, nice. Thank you. Pastor McKay brought up Tommy Robinson, and I've been following him because he's one of the brave men that will stand up for girls and for women regardless of the consequences. But this one thing came out to me, we're so close to it and people don't understand how close we are, is to think, if you could just think for a moment with your pastor standing here, and you have such a blessing to have such a great pastor, because I've actually heard pastors stand from the pulpit and say, you know, not all Germans were Nazis. I'm like, yeah, but all Nazis were Nazis. So imagine your pastor handcuffed and taken out of the church as he's speaking, because that is happening in the world, and that can and most certainly will happen in America if we continue down this road. And it won't just be the pastor, it'll be the people taken out of their homes. So we need to start working We need to pray and work and do what needs to be done. Thank you for coming, because that's the first step. Thank you.